a slight different issue comes up about code enforcement. And there has been a few people over the past and a number of the public that was a little concerned how they maintain that. And so one of our questions was, how important is the role of the city to force people to maintain their property, like cutting down grass or overhanging branches, and how it's being handled? Do you have any ideas of how that could be improved?
I do, but I think it comes down to being neighbors. And I think it comes down to being a community. And you know, I know people complain about code enforcement, and I see the code enforcement hearings that come before the council, and it's all about tall grass and weeds, a lot of them, or extra cars on a lawn. And my question is, instead of calling, did you go talk to your neighbor? You know, if this is a neighbor that's always cut down their lawn and all of a sudden things have gone into disrepair, have you gone and asked what's changed? What's different? Is there something I can help you with? So I think that sense of community would help to eliminate a lot of the code enforcement issues. And then I think, you know, we need to review the hearing process, and I know the council has asked for city staff to bring that forward for them. But to review the timeline, to review the notification process, it seems like this really big, drawn out process that maybe we can expedite. And maybe we also can get some community resources to help. I've talked to people in the community who are willing to volunteer their time and coordinate groups to come help with some of that stuff, which would eliminate some of the burden on the city and the cost as well as the manpower. So I think we just need to have more of those conversations and get those resources paired together.
Okay. Recently, they've announced the 5 finalists for city manager. And what traits and experience do you hope to see in the person selected to be the next city manager?
Well, I'll say I haven't had a chance to review, do my Google searches and review a full background of those 5 candidates, but I have read the brief bios that were provided. We need someone who's going to be transparent, who's going to be a good communicator, who's going to have vision for the future of the city of Moses Lake, but also respecting the past of who we are. I mean, I don't want somebody who's going to come in and make us the next big town on the list, the destination place. We have a lot of great things here going for us. So we need somebody who's going to take the good things that we currently have, work on some of the improvement areas that we can work on, and have a vision for the future. We also need someone who's going to be a better communicator, I think, with city staff as well as with the council, making sure everybody's on the same page, communicating to the public what's going on, and being willing to talk with community members and hear their concerns if they come before council, or just make a private meeting in the proper way in the city offices.
Okay. Another issue that's come up year after year, and one that I keep seeing, and I think it's come up again this year, is people asking to have chickens, not roosters, but hens or rabbits, whether it be for food or for 4-H or for the fair within city limits. What's your stand on people being allowed to keep chickens and rabbits on their property?
We live in an ag community. So people want to farm, they want to have experiences with raising things. I think people have become more aware about the sources of their food and the sustainability of that. And I'm not necessarily opposed to chickens in the city. I'm opposed to one individual's rights superseding the rights of another person. And so if you know how to raise chickens, because I don't, but if you know how to raise chickens and you do a very good job of that, I'm fine with that. But if they're running amok and they end up in my backyard every day, then we might have some issues, or I'm going to have chicken for dinner. So, but I think we need to make sure that if we write an ordinance in place, that we allow it to be so that it doesn't impose on the neighbors. So, I don't have a problem with it necessarily, but I also haven't lived next to somebody who has a chicken coop. So I don't know what the variability is in terms of raising chickens. Looking forward to a possible presentation in front of council on that to learn a little bit more myself. So.
All right. There's always a question whenever a large factory or company or industry comes to the area, and it tends to be on the outside of Moses Lake, and Moses Lake quickly annexes the property. How do you feel that's taken place historically, and how would you like to see that happen in the future?
I think it's great that Moses Lake is trying to add those areas of the community that are going to help to bring in tax revenue and bring in dollars to the city. But I think when we talk about annexation, we need to be very careful to balance that with us also being able to provide the resources necessary out to those people that we annex. So fire service, law enforcement service, possibly other infrastructure, safety measures, and helping them with permitting processes and all of that. I don't want to annex just to get the money. I want to annex because we can fully support that business and integrate them as part of our community. And I also want to see that business also give back to the community, which many of them who have come in recently have done in amazing ways. So with annexation, just in general, we have to be able to support it if we annex it.
That brings up the question of Larson community. Moses Lake has seemed to have built around the community, but for years it has not been brought up at City Council. Do you think Larson community should be annexed into the city?
I don't think we should annex anybody until we look at increasing our fire and law enforcement infrastructure, because we don't have enough people in place currently to serve the large size of our community. So I think we need to add more people. There are great people that live out there in the Larson community, and if being a part of the city would best serve them, then maybe that's something that we need to look at if we can also support them. But for now, I don't think we should annex anything until we can change or increase some of our support structure.
All right. So how much outreach to the community do you think the City Council should be engaging in? Do you think there should be more or less, or are they doing a great job?
I think it depends on the individual that you're talking about. And I don't want to call any people out, but I think some are doing a really great job of being involved in the community. You can read the newspaper, you can see people's names that are in there, and who's really investing and who's not. You know, I spend a lot of time volunteering in the community. A lot of my volunteering hours are spent with law enforcement. I involve my students in those because that's what I teach. That's my background, so it's the easy fit. But I spend a lot of time on prevention work, and I spend a lot of time volunteering in other community groups. So I think it's incredibly important. You have to be known in your community. You have to be getting out there and being involved. Otherwise, you lose touch with what's happening in the community. So I think some should do more, and I think some do a great job. And like I said, I don't want to call anybody out.
Thank you. What role should council members play in managing city staff?
Well, they have an advisory role. And I think if something comes before them, they should have the discussion. And of course, you know, the city manager, the way that our government is structured, the city manager is the one who makes hiring or firing decisions. A lot of those HR discussions occur in executive sessions, which means they're closed to the public, which is pretty standard and normal. But I think if an issue comes before, they do need to discuss it, and they do need to have input because they also interact with the same city staff. So it's another resource and source of information for those decisions. So advisory would be my answer.
Okay. For a number of years, there's been a group working to expand the library because the number of users has far exceeded its design. How do you feel the city could help in that expansion, or should they?
I think libraries are incredibly important. I think people need to be reading books, actual books. As an educator, as somebody who's in higher education, and I see students coming through, people need to read books, and they need to read more books. So I think the city should have a support role. I think the Library Foundation does a great job. They're out, they're fundraising, they're making people aware of the situation that we have. But again, it's one more service that the city can help with, but is it something that they should take on full force and that should be their sole focus? Probably not, because it's one resource among many that we have in our community. So I think we need to evaluate and look at what are the resources that are vying for those kind of same dollars, same attention, and then be able to distribute appropriately. But no, go Library Foundation. They definitely deserve a shout out and are doing amazing work.
All right, we're down to my favorite question. It's the last
Okay.
one. A couple candidates said it's cruel, but I don't mind.
All right.
Why should people vote for you?
Because I'm the best choice for the position. No, because I care about this community, and because my opponent has done a great job in this city for many years, but it's time. It's time for change. It's time for someone new, somebody who's currently involved in the city, who's currently volunteering, who understands government, who can take over and transition into that role and carry it into the future and help with the new city manager, help with the new council. And so, yes, confidently, I do believe that I am a good fit for that position. But I believe so because I believe I can continue the good work, and I can also further things with my knowledge and expertise that is new and different. and can kind of help us in the future. So I'm with the community every day. I have a pretty good touch, I think, on what's going on. So.
All right, well, thank you very much, Ryan. We appreciate your time and coming in to talk with me and answer our questions. I-Fiber News has more episodes on Grant County elections coming up. Stay tuned and be sure to watch them as they appear on the channel and appear online before the election. For I-Fiber News, I'm Bill Stevenson.